Buenas tardes. ¿Cómo están?
A mí me tocó ver a un compañero que como a las 9 de la mañana dijo, ¿sabes qué? Me siento mal, dice, ya no voy a salir del field. Pues ya llegando a la casa empezamos a escuchar nada más que andaba vomitando y vomitando. Le dijeron, ¿sabes qué? Pues si no vas a componerte para ir a trabajar, lo único que podemos hacer es mandarte para mí.
Si no nos hidratamos bien o quizás no podemos tomar un descanso cuando estamos en la labor, y pues realmente eso sí es duro para nosotros porque a veces sí nos cuesta hasta la vida.
Extreme heat is the biggest weather-related killer, larger than hurricanes, tornadoes, and floods. Each year, an average of 40 workers die from exposure to heat.
Pues ahora es bien distinto porque era el pilar de la casa, él lo era todo para sus hijos, para mí, y ahora ya no lo tenemos.
¿Hay como un ley o un protocolo que dice esto es lo que deben hacer en las reglas, como empresa, como dueño?
There are no national rules to guarantee workers have breaks, shade, and water on the job. Industry groups and Republican politicians want to keep it that way.
So I'm looking at the weather app and it says the real feel is 109. The workers are going to be out there at least till 7. So they're in the thick of it.
It's overwhelming to think that people are forced to work in these conditions.
But a historic effort is underway to create the first national standard to protect workers from extreme heat.
Sometimes I get asked, well, what's this going to cost? And the answer is, what does it cost not to do it? What's the cost in human lives? What's the cost in human suffering? It is better for everybody when workers do well.
We wanted to understand why it's taken so long to secure these life-saving measures and the reality of life without them.
Si no vamos preparados, nos puede pasar muchas cosas en el campo.
Abel Cruz Cabrera has been working on tobacco and sweet potato farms in North Carolina for 16 years.
Compramos lo que es agua embotellada. Tenemos un cooler, cada quien se compra un cooler y avienta lo que es el agua embotellada. Tenemos igual los Gatorades y traemos de México un suero.
¿Y todo comprado por ustedes?
Sí.
¿El patrón les da
agua?
No.
El patrón, el que yo tengo, nunca nos ha puesto agua voluntariamente.
¿Miki qué trae?
Miki, aquí trae Gatorade.
No, él no le importa el trabajador, él le importa su trabajo.
Farm workers have some of the fewest labor protections of any workers in the U.S., leaving them 35 times more likely to die from heat-related illnesses.
We're going to visit some workers, talk about what's been going on at their farms.
Leticia Zavala works with El Futuro es Nuestro, a group organizing farm workers and advocating for improved working conditions. She's on a mission to prevent any more deaths from extreme heat in the fields.
Entonces, como compañeros, si nosotros hubiéramos escuchado a un trabajador decir, hey, yo no me siento mal, como compañeros, ¿ustedes qué creen que nos toca a nosotros hacer? Ayudarlo. ¿En qué forma?
Are there any heat protections in place for farm workers?
Heat specific, not in North Carolina. I don't understand why it's not happening other than the fact that growers see our people as disposable.
Right now, only 5 states have heat safety standards. So for many workers, the only protections come from looking out for one another.
Yo a veces les digo, vale más mi vida que meterme a una o 2 horas más, que serían unos $30. Sí. Vale más mi vida que ganarme $30.
Growers tend to do math a lot for workers, right? Especially H2A workers. Like, it cost me $1,200 to get you here. It's gonna cost me so much to give you guys a break.
Most of the farm workers here are coming from Mexico on what's called H2A visas. Workers are completely tied to the employers who bring them here, working in their fields, living on their property. And all that can make it difficult for workers to speak up about unsafe conditions.
People are working themselves to death because they want to be productive for their employer.
Last year, at least 2 migrant farm workers died in North Carolina from heat-related illnesses. Another had died just over a week before we started filming. And because these deaths often go unreported, the Department of Labor estimates that heat-related fatalities could be 14 times higher than official counts.
For every one case that does go public, there's like, I don't know how many, 15, 50, 100, I don't know, that do not.
Flor Herrera Picasso is the executive director of Casa Azul, a community organization in Wilson, North Carolina. After the death of farm worker Jose Arturo Gonzalez Mendoza last year, she raised $12,000 to support his widow, Maria Guadalupe Manriquez Vázquez, and their 2 children.
Hola, María.
Buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes. ¿Cómo estás?
Jose Arturo passed away 11 days after he started working at Barnes Farming in North Carolina.
Pues que tristemente a nosotros nos quitaron lo único que teníamos. Porque como le digo, pues él lo era todo, pues era nuestra familia, ahora nosotros estamos incompletos. Para ellos es como todo, era un trabajador más. Ellos ya pudieron reemplazarlo tal vez, pero yo en mi familia y en mi vida nunca lo voy a poder reemplazar. Ni nunca va a haber otra persona que pueda ser el papá de mis hijos. Porque a ellos siempre les va a faltar él y a mí también. Como le digo, para ellos es fácil reemplazarlo, pero para nosotros no. Porque él ya no va a regresar nunca.
Barnes Farming was fined over $187,000 for serious labor violations, including only giving workers at most a 5-minute break for a 6-hour day and not having cups for drinking water. In a statement to More Perfect Union, Barnes Farming said that these are merely allegations and that the company is contesting the fines.
So now she's the sole provider for her family, and she's having a very difficult time making ends meet. And so she's considering coming to work as an H-2A worker herself. And her children say, no, I don't want to lose my mom too. So this program, in this family's eyes, is a death sentence.
Hace tiempo fue él, el día de mañana pueden ser ellos y tampoco nadie los va a ayudar así como no.
José Arturo no se salió del film. ¿Por qué ustedes creen que no se salió del film? Por miedo. La necesidad que tenía en México.
Lo primero que piensa es su familia, por eso él prefirió seguir.
Lo primero que piensan es en la familia. ¿Sí? Sí. Porque tienes un compromiso, ¿verdad? ¿Qué más? We need a lot more protections. So any protection that is put in place federally is good.
We're going to do everything we can to make sure that those workers know that we see them, we're listening to them, and we've got their backs.
The Department of Labor is proposing a new rule that, when finalized, will establish the nation's first ever federal safety standard for excessive heat in the workplace.
The proposed standard would apply not just to farm workers, but to 36 million workers across the economy.
And our rule would say to workers across the nation that you are protected. There's a standard beneath which nobody should have to work and live. And it would provide for some common sense protections at certain trigger temperatures. Employers would be required to make sure that workers have cool water and shade and a place to rest. In certain circumstances, paid breaks, because if workers don't feel like they can rest to recover, if they feel like they have to choose between their health and their livelihood, the consequences are disastrous.
Previous efforts to pass heat standards have faced steep resistance.
Let freedom reign. We have the greatest economy in the world. We're the most productive with the happiest employees on the planet, and it's because of freedom and entrepreneurship.
Florida and Texas both passed bills banning local protections.
Preempts local governments from establishing a minimum wage, establishing terms and conditions of employment. It also preempts the regulation of workplace heat exposure requirements all to the state.
The proposed standard is the first of its kind on a national level. It's been in the works for 3 years and has already faced tons of opposition. Industry groups have called it unnecessary and cost prohibitive. But the thing is, there are already farms that have the labor conditions the federal heat standard proposes. Where are we going?
We went to the sweet potato field.
Okay.
Yeah.
Randall Watkins Jr. is a third-generation farmer who is part of the Fair Food Program. Farms who are part of this program agree to labor standards, like guaranteed breaks, emergency response plans for heat, and worker trainings on heat safety.
¿Cuáles serían los peligros que ustedes ven ahí? El golpe de calor es uno.
Cuando yo trabajaba en las labores, yo recuerdo que muchas veces cuando uno pedía agua, porque no teníamos agua antes del programa, y pedíamos agua y decían, oh, espérate, ahorita va a llover.
These heat protections only apply to the handful of growers who opt in, but they show that these types of labor standards are possible.
Why is it important to you as a farm owner to make sure that your workers are taken care of and that they're safe and healthy?
Yeah, I mean, I guess because they got family to go back home too. So I try to treat them the same way that I would want to be treated.
It should really be that simple, right? But getting nationwide protections could be complicated. New labor rules like the heat standard take years to finalize, meaning the 2024 election could play a key role in whether this gets prioritized.
It is good to be in the House of Labor.
Or completely abandoned.
I will repeal every disastrous Biden regulation.
We don't have to wonder what a Donald Trump presidency would look like. We know. He's been there. And what we saw, it was systematic, concerted efforts to strip workers of their basic rights, to take away workers' power, to interfere with the right to organize, to decrease wages and eliminate safety protections. I don't even think we have to be hypothetical about what a strong administration that stands by workers looks like versus one that really deeply is hostile to working people. We know, we've seen it.
It's so good on paper. Now, for me, it's like, how are you going to enforce it?
If the heat standard is finalized, it will be up to the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, a department that's severely underfunded, to make sure farms comply.
If they just get a slap on the wrist, a fine that they appeal, that they never pay, then people will continue to die.
Labor laws are only as good as they turn into real protections for people in the workplace, right? Otherwise, they're words on paper. And so enforcement is really key to that. And in this administration, we have ushered in a new era of enforcement. And a part of that has been to try to build back the department after the dramatic cuts of the last administration. But that does require congressional action. That does require a budget that matches the needs of working people. And that's something, a fight that we continue to fight.
We're on track to have the hottest year on record. It's worth asking, how much longer will workers, especially the ones responsible for feeding the nation, have to risk their lives without these protections?
Año con año está muriendo gente, trabajador de campo, año con año. Hay muchas muertes, todos los años. A veces sí los hacen virales, a veces no, a veces quedan callados y hacen como no pasó nada. Pero pues somos seres humanos y me imagino que deben de cambiar las cosas. No puede seguir así.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to watch more videos like this one. And if there's a story you'd like us to cover next, please put it in the comments.